Hello and welcome, friends, to the Barcliff Group's Fireside Chat. My name is Sharonica Barcliff. I'm the founder and CEO, and I am happy to welcome you back. It's been a while. We have been celebrating 7 years in business. It has flown by. In celebration of that, we have done a rebrand. So if you check us out. We have a new website. We're also on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Connect with us. Don't be shy. Give us feedback. We'd love to have it. And we have lots of good things in store. So connect with us. Today, we have Dr. Ozzy Ahmed, who is no stranger to the Fireside Chat. This is our third segment. We started on COVID about a year and a half ago. It's been a while. We continue with segment 2. So now we're back with segment 3. For those of you who have not met, Dr. Ahmed is a family physician and epidemiologist. He has done work with Meharry Medical College, as well as research with the CDC, specifically with the Office of Minority Health. He has a lot of extensive research in infectious disease, such as HIV and AIDS, as well as chronic disease, such as cardiovascular disease and stroke. He has a plethora of articles. He's written scholarly articles. He's written YouTube videos, i.e. check us out. His the first 2 segments of Fireside Chat and podcast. So what we'll do, we'll drop his link so that you can take a look at some of his scholarly articles and just take advantage of the gems he's dropping today. So welcome again, Dr. Ahmed, and thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good. So we have a full slate today. So let's not even, we have a lot. Of course, there's been so much going on with COVID, and now we have the Delta variant. So since you are our expert, Dr. Ahmed, I'm going to kick it right off. What's the Delta variant? What's going on with that?
I think the Delta variant is a type or a strain of the virus that kind of have different characteristics, have different features compared to the original COVID or SARS virus that we're talking about. So if you kind of remember when COVID started, we said that it's very contagious. It's very can jump from one person to another really easily. And I think we measure these things in epidemiology by something called R naught. And R naught is the number of people that the person that's infected can infect. So from the beginning of different infectious diseases, we know, for example, as a frame of reference, influenza is probably 1 to 1.5, 1.3. And then the original SARS is 1 to 3 people. So one person can infect 3 people if given that they are not immune, they don't have the vaccine, they didn't have anything. And then the Delta variant, one can go and infect 7 people.
Wow.
So it is more than double that the number that they can get infected from one source, one human being, kind of double the amount of infection that can spread around. And give you again another frame of reference. So we talked about flu, and we talked about the difference between the original SARS and the Delta variant. And then for another frame of reference, chickenpox is a very infectious disease. People thought first that this Delta variant is similar to chickenpox, but we discovered that it is not as bad as chickenpox. Chickenpox, one person can infect 10. So, and then measles is the worst one, probably. One person can infect up to 18 people. So this is just to give you an idea about infectivity or the potential for people giving the virus to other people, given the other people are not doing anything to prevent it, such as wearing masks or social distancing or being immunized, having the vaccine. So that's one thing. But to give you another reference to how bad the Delta virus is, first of all the viruses, all of them, like to change, like to mutate. And why they mutate? In order to be able to survive, because the virus can't survive alone. They need to go into people. When they start making copies of themselves all the time, one or two copies might, by just the natural laws in biology and stuff, they might ended up being erroneous copies, wrong copies, meaning that these are not similar to the original kind of, if you have a picture and you're making copy of it, then you know what I mean? It would be just a little bit different. When they get a little bit different, we say about this mutation, because some of the building blocks in the virus are these amino acids, and they change one, and then it will be a little bit different than the one before. Then change 5, then they change 6 amino acids. So what happens with these variants, it's like the natural law for the viruses. Why? Because they want to continue to survive. If they stay the same, the body can figure out some stuff against them. But when they are like this, they might even try to deceive our bodies into that they are a different virus rather than the same virus with a little bit of mutation.
Yeah.
When we talk about virology in general, we talk about things like antigens, which are the parts of the virus that's capable of producing infections. The antigens change in these copies from one to one. So once you change these antigens drastically, we call this antigenic shift, meaning that the new virus could be completely different than the old virus, to the extent that even immunizations don't work on it at all, the shots that we make for the virus. And I think that's the part that's really hard. It's like, how can we keep ourselves healthy and the virus unable to be transmitted, but also it's a race with time, as you know.
It's almost like viral Darwinism, so to speak. Like it keeps changing and mutating to, I guess, project its livelihood. So in terms of vaccination and herd immunity, a lot of folks are saying, well, we'll reach herd immunity eventually. How does a vaccine play a part in helping us get there, though? Because I know there are a lot of counter thoughts in terms of the vaccine.
Yeah, I think, like I said, when there are a lot of people that could be potentially sort of good sources, good hosts for the virus to continue to survive in them, then I think we wouldn't be doing ourselves a disservice if we just wait for herd immunity to happen based on infection. Because if we wait for that, that means there will be a lot of more infected people,
right?
Equals a lot of more hospitalized patients and a lot of more dead patients, dead people.
Right.
So mortalities are going to increase, and hospitalization is going to increase, and severity, people with a lot of severe disease is going to increase, and especially with Delta. Delta is like 2 or 3 features in Delta that are really, I would say, more dangerous to the public in general. The first one is people harbor a huge amount, people carry a huge amount of the virus. We call that viral load, or how much of the virus is in humans.
Okay. Viral load.
You know, so for example, it is 1,000 times the original virus, the amount of virus that people carry.
Wow.
So when it's 1,000 times, you can imagine that the amount of infection that could be transmitted to other people if they are not wearing their masks, or they are not doing any social distancing, or they are not immunized, then you have a huge amount to give other people. And even our research showed that this 1,000 times is present even in vaccinated people. So some vaccinated people are going to carry it with them like carriers, but they are not going to be showing symptoms. And as a result, it's like a sense of false, I guess, security,
Mhm.
but they can still disseminate it. They can still give it to other people. And
Right.
when they give it to other people, it means that's going to go like the Arnold thing, going, every person is capable of transmitting it to another 7 people, and it goes, the circle continues.
Right.
So the reason that also that this virus is a little bit more dangerous is the amount of not only the number of people and the viral load, but also its shorter incubation period than the
Ah.
other original virus. So if
Mhm.
you say the other original virus was 5 days average,
Mhm.
this one might be 3 days average. So they have a faster time to make people sick if they were, again, not immune, not vaccinated.
Mhm.
And then it's 1,000 times the amount of the virus present in
Mhm.
their secretions and in their oropharynx area of behind the nose and behind the mouth. Then this increased the strength and
Right.
transmission to like huge amount of proportions.
So that's almost like half the incubation period. So to go from the average of 7 days, 7 or 8 days to 3 or 4 days, that's a lot faster. And then considering the viral load of 1,000% and being able one person to affect seven, I would think that those stats alone would be given to warrant concern. One thing I wanted to hop back on, which you mentioned, because I've heard a lot of conversations that have the misconception and a lot of debate going on between the virus and the vaccination in terms of, well, you're vaccinated and you still had a breakthrough case. And I wanted to reiterate what you said, that while you're vaccinated, you still could be a carrier, but you're not impacted the same way as someone who's unvaccinated or has an immunocomposition. And I really want to bring that forward because I actually heard a conversation of like, well, we're vaccinated, we don't have to wear masks, we don't have to do any population health or infectious disease parameters because we're vaccinated. It's like, hey, we're superheroes now. And I just wanted to take that back and to really lament on put emphasis that you still can be a carrier, but you have a higher chance of survival and a higher chance of recovery. You may not even have symptoms, but it's still important that that folks know that you can still carry it. You will not be impacted having had the vaccination.
I think that's a great point that you just brought up. So the vaccine, as you know, it's probably effective in about like up to 90-95% of the time, the vaccines we have. And this is for the original and first mutation, which is
Okay.
the one that started in England initially, or the strain they call it B117. So it can be very good up to in the 90s for the older versions of the virus. But when you get to Delta, the amount of protection decreases.
Mm-hmm.
It could be, and also if it is the number, the days passed or the months passed since you got vaccinated,
Mm-hmm.
is it protective for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months? Because the antibody response or the amount of antibodies are going to decrease over time. That's why we're talking about the booster.
Okay.
So if you are vaccinated and your immunity is a little bit waning off, going away, you might be protected close to 60%, 65, 66. So
Okay.
it goes from 90 to like 60 something in about maybe 6 months, 7 months. That's why we're saying around 8 months or something, you need a booster so you can boost your immunity, goes up again. What happens with the Delta variant particularly, and these breakthroughs, that even for people that they are immunized, that they are considered to be safer in terms of not getting infected, some of them, the amount of the antibodies might be completely down to the extent that they might get sick too.
Be lower.
And also some of the people might have a bunch of chronic diseases that already the immune system is not as healthy as other people. So it's nothing is 100%. So some of these people might get sick, and if they get sick while they are vaccinated, some of them might get pretty sick to being in an ICU or even die. So still there is some amount of risk, even for the vaccinated people, if they are of this group that is have a lower level of healthy immune system versus the people with a healthy immune system. And if we continue on that track, not only the Delta virus will be Delta, it could be 2, 5, 6 strains after that, 6 different copies, to the extent that it evades the immune system of even healthy people. So you are now confronted with something new. And I don't want to make people afraid, but I want just to tell them that this is the natural kind of, I would say, law or the natural history of any virus in order to exist. The viruses are smart. So they want to continue to infect people and make copies of themselves. But if we leave them alone and we are not reaching the herd immunity faster, the virus will be able to be a new virus after some time.
So for the person that has a lot of skepticism about the vaccination, what would you say to those individuals? I know in the past week, the FDA has approved Pfizer as a vaccine. There's been rumble positively and negatively about both. But for those individuals who are watching and are still skeptical, what would you say to them in terms of encouraging vaccination?
So I'd first say something about the science of that. So from the beginning, once we started getting the vaccines became available, there are a lot of people that they are either skeptics or for one reason or another. And some people don't even believe that this vaccination works. And some people, they say it is a shot, but it isn't a vaccine. And in their minds, there's a difference between a shot and a vaccine, which is pretty interesting. So there are so many reasons for people not to get vaccinated. I think the best way to approach that is to kind of ask them if you really know them, or even for discussion, like sometimes when I'm out and I see people and, we ended up getting into these vaccines and I don't know them. I'd say, so why you don't want to take the vaccine? So it depends on what are the reasons that they cite saying that we don't want the vaccine. So the reasons are again, are just amazingly many of them. So the first one was it's not approved by the FDA. And for these people, even prior to the approval, you say the difference between approved and emergency use kind of authorization that we were under recently. Only the difference is in numbers. So one of them wanted you to get more time, more numbers for the phase 3 trials, which we now accumulated, probably hundreds of thousands, and not hundreds of thousands from a trial perspective, but even we accumulated all these millions that get vaccinated, so we can submit this information to the FDA, so the FDA move it from emergency authorization to approval. The other part about the approval is something called biological application, like, it is just mumble jumble wording that they have in terms of they submit a label for the virus or the whatever they submitting this request for, to make it available to the doctors to the extent the doctors can use it in other indications, which in this case, it's not a pill, it's a shot. So for example, if the FDA is saying you only give it to people over the age of 12, say, and we are now ready to give it to people over the age of 12 or over the age of 16 or whatever cutoff, they can use it on their own. The docs can use it for younger people where there's no enough research done to warrant its use. So that's the value of this labeling, that we call it off-label use for physicians. So it just gives them more of a leeway to do whatever they want to do with whatever chemical or drug that's now completely approved by the FDA.
Right.
But really, it didn't have like a real big difference from the old one. Well, as you know, there are a lot of skepticism because people think the whole thing is made up.
Right.
The virus came from China, and people call it the Kung flu. And,
Right.
they heard a lot of things from even political leaders that were kind of pointing to the fact that the whole thing is like a conspiracy. And because of that, they were saying, well, why do we need to take it? It's like,
Right.
I'm not sure.
Right. That's a tough perspective to counter. Unfortunately, I've actually gone into the ER room and it's bad. In comparison to when I've gone through college and graduate school and so forth, to have seen it in the flesh, it's a little bit different. And I wish that those individuals will actually go see it in the flesh. It's currently in our state that we're inundated, and it's still the belief that it doesn't exist. So with that, and thinking that FDA approval would kind of side against those, they found other reasons to say, well, these things are FDA approved and so forth. So I'm hoping that they take heed to a lot of the science and the gems you're dropping here in terms of the contagiousness of it, in terms of the actual, I guess, the anatomical nature of the virus itself and why it can mutate, because those are great understandings for just everyday folks to understand why it's important to protect yourselves and get to that herd immunity as quickly as possible. I wanted to ask you, Dr. Ahmed, there was another question that we had in terms of women's fertility and the vaccine. There was a lot of skepticism, not even skepticism, just concern. Do you have any information for us in regards to women's fertility and the vaccine?
So I think it started actually with the pregnant women, and there was some skepticism about why pregnant women should take it or why they shouldn't take it. And I think the final word about that was it's okay to give it during pregnancy. So that's one issue. And then the second issue came, and it was thought that the virus is going to make women and make men too infertile.
Yes, I did run across this question about that too.
Right. And then people made the leap of faith, I guess, as if the virus is going to make somebody infertile, regardless of the mechanism, regardless of how. They said, well, then the vaccine, given that people think about vaccines these days as the same old vaccines like I had in the past, so probably the vaccine is going to make them infertile too. There are a lot of investigations that were done, and they were based on sort of bench research. So they are not like epidemiologic studies, they are just chemicals. So there is a protein which is present in the placenta. And the same protein, not the same, but similar protein, or even the word similar is wrong. There is a protein in the spike protein, all right? So the protein in the placenta, and there is another protein in the spike protein, which can be produced by the vaccination. And there is like 3 amino acids, because all proteins are made of amino acids. 3 out of like 500 are present in this same and the 2. So obviously this similarity, when you're talking 3, by nature of amino acids, because we have 20 amino acids total known. So if you have 20 to go around and get all combinations, permutations, while you have 500 of them to make a certain protein, you will get 2 or 3 similar. But people took this similarity to mean that the body is going to invade itself and destroy the placenta and
completely, right?
Completely, and therefore women can abort or can have a miscarriage or can have something that will endanger their pregnancy. So having said that, they really researched this so much, and they put a lot of information on, to the extent that that this is really hype, but not science. And people are just looking at something. The other thing, from a men perspective, the virus itself, not the shot, because of being similar, like a lot of viruses can cause inflammation in the testicles. So that can impair the production of sperms. Well, I think during an acute infection, like mumps, for example,
Right.
men can get a little bit of impaired production of sperms, but very rarely, very rarely from mumps, people can get complete sterility. So what happens is if you take that and you apply the same rules to this, saying that's another virus, it could probably do like mumps and do these kind of things. But that's the infection, not the
Right.
vaccine. So it is known now for a fact that it doesn't affect the shot, won't affect men or women in the Department of Fertility.
This is good. Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. That's really good. That's really good. So we're going to take the next segment as we close out into health and politics in terms of COVID. So of course, we have a lot going on. A lot of parents, such as myself, are worried about our children going to school. The latest article that I saw was the doctors in Palm Beach, Florida, that were staging community outreach. Not to say they didn't walk out on the patients, but it just shows the level of concern from the community, from the clinical standpoint, from parents, from just everyday goers about COVID and getting it within a reach so that we can get past it. If you had the position to deploy a population health infectious disease plan, what would you do or what would you institute to help us get this under control in the US?
Okay, so I think schools and younger people are really interesting group of people. Why? Because they, from a school perspective and just by nature, they are in contact with each other, especially younger people around, they say between 18 and 6, say. Mm-hmm. All these people they go to a smaller place, which is could be a classroom or a gym or somewhere that when they are really close to each other. So I think they resemble in this case a group of people that you can put each one of them at a desk and close the door, and they can be working securely away from each other. So I think that's what creates a problem for this group of people. Plus, we don't have a vaccine approved for people under 12. So the 12-year-old and down, currently there is nothing you can give them. So because of that, I would say the only available thing to us is mask. Yeah. So you have to wear a mask. And as we know that the masks, maybe they are not like 100% protection, but it's a percentage, maybe up to 20.
Which is good, though, because I know there are a lot of arguments about the efficacy of masks, but I'm glad that you brought that up.
Right. So I think that people should really wear masks. And then you ended up having problems from this kind of infusing politics into everything. So there's a group that says parents should be the ones to decide. And there's a group that said, no, it should be mandated by whatever, the location. Like if you are in a certain city that has a huge amount of transmission, then the local governments should be kind of telling people if they are supposed to wear it or not. And amongst these people would be schools still. And then there is this thing, obviously, that if a governor of a state that would come up with something, say no mandates, for example, 100%, and then some people latch into this and say, he said no, or she said no mandates, even if a local government ends up saying everybody should wear a mask at school, then there is now contradictory opinions. And I think we have experienced this from the beginning of this virus, these contradictory edicts, mandates, decisions. It's too much. And I think political leaders, in my mind, should get out of the scientific domain, should get out of science, because they don't know, and they might have a biased opinion. They're not scientists. They can't think like a scientist. They think like politicians. So they want to make sure people like them. Well, I think that the virus or the vaccine, any of the things that we're experiencing, they don't care if you are white, you're black, you're young, you're old, you're Republican, you're Democrats. They don't care. They go to everybody, equal opportunity for everything.
Right.
So we should, in a very, I would say, informed way, look at our scientists and see what the scientists are saying. Follow the science, follow the evidence. And if the evidence tells us do X in order to reduce Y, then we need to do X to reduce Y, rather than stick to one political opinion or another and then ignore all the indications in evidence and in science and in journals and articles, and just stick with what the politician is saying or whoever makes us feel comfortable. And there is a bias, that kind of a thinking bias, that we call it confirmation bias. And confirmation bias is kind of we tend to confirm or believe in the things that confirm our own opinion. So if we go with a certain opinion, we're gonna like people that say the same opinion.
They're side on the air of what we believe normally. That's true.
Yeah. And I think that's an important point, because there are a bunch of people that kind of like on the fence when it gets to vaccination or masks. And then if somebody starts saying something that they believe in, they're going to be into that camp, rather than research it, see what the results of the research is, believe in science rather than believe in, there are some even Quakery business into COVID, into like using certain herbs and homeopathic stuff that will take care of this, or use the OTCs like vitamin A and zinc and vitamin D and all that. And it's just sad to see all these things circulating everywhere. And then a lot of people look at them and say, yes, like we started even, with our former president talking about bleach, and maybe they need to inject themselves with bleach. And the strangest thing that there are some people who I read about it in somewhere recently, that they did that. Not only like thought about it, that they did it.
They actually did it.
Yeah. And I mean, that's like, that's crazy science. That's worse than magic, which it doesn't exist.
Right. No, this is really good. And just thank you as always. You're always a blessing to share your time, talent, and treasures with us. It's always informative and enlightening. And especially right now, we do have those verging paths as we go through everyday life. But I know I've taken a lot just from this segment. And I've spoken with you several times on and off the camera. So I'm hoping that our viewers have also gained all these nuggets. And if you have questions for us, please feel free to drop them in the comments as we go live with this recording. Of course, we will have Dr. Ahmed again as many times as he is open to be here. And we're also open to just talk about those items around COVID, around infectious disease, around population health. He's our gardening's subject matter expert on all those things. So, and he's ready, he's a rock star. So anything to close out, Dr. Ahmed, as we round up?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think what I'd like everybody to get from this is we are encountering a serious disease that obviously for a lot of us, we kind of don't feel the seriousness, because life looks normal outside. Like when I go outside here, I go to the store or when I go somewhere, it's life is same way. So we don't really see the bad effects of it unless we are in the medical field, and like you hear from doctors and nurses how much they are inundated with cases in hospitals, and some of these cases happen among, not some, actually the majority of them happen among the unvaccinated, for example.
Right.
So I just would urge everybody to look at evidence and look at the proof that these things really work, and don't follow kind of the hype. Don't follow the things that confirm some ideas that you had before or you had it from somebody. And also don't play with your life and the life of the people
Yes.
you love, what I call a game of Russian roulette, because you have no idea if that will be you or that will be somebody in your family that ended up sick and ended up in the ICU and ended up suffering too much, or even became later on a long hauler, because the people that they ended up with some complications, say after COVID, they can live with it for years, because you don't know when they will go away.
Yeah.
So why do we need that? I think we need to think as a society, as a group, because each one of us has a responsibility towards the other one.
That's good.
We are, as a society, like I would say, I made an analogy in an article I wrote recently. This is an enemy. This is exactly like what happened September 11th. So the virus is an enemy. So we have to unite to get rid of the enemy.
Right.
We can't be working like, you can't imagine that we went to 9/11, after 9/11, and we went to Afghanistan, went to Iraq, and then some people, they say, no, I don't feel like fighting today. But we can't do that with the virus either. It's the same. It's a threat. It's a big threat. It's not artificial. It is not a game. It is not a political thing that somebody want to control us or any of that, because this is reality. And reality tells us, from what we learned before, that we should be prepared and we should be united and we should help each other getting rid of it. Because if we don't, we're going to live like this for another 3, 4, 5 years and think about it as a fact of life. There will be another strain, and there'll be another strain, and there'll be another strain, rather than nip it in the bud now and say it's over, and hopefully it won't be reintroduced another time soon. But if we don't do that as a group, as a country, then we will be in the same position we're in today in another year and 2 and 3.
Right. A collective viral effort. Like we all need to be pitching in. Very good. You've heard it right here, folks, right here from the expert. We've gone into the history of it, present and past. I would implore everyone to go back and look at segments 1 and 2. He has a lot of information. We have diagrams that actually teach the anatomy, the growth of the virus, its implications on the population, just in case you want more information. Those segments are located right here on the YouTube channel. I'll drop those links as well so you can read and view those. Again, reach out to us. We're going to round out. Again, thank you, Dr. Ahmed. We look forward to having you again, and thank you to our viewers. We're here and we're ready to rock and roll for this year.
Thank you.